You're listening to Cash and Sass. I'm Lisa Marie, your go-to gal for all things money. As the Sassy Wealth Queen and the brains behind the Sassy Wealth Coach, I'm here to take you on a thrilling ride from the financial chaos to sassy and sexy money.
Welcome back, my sassy friend, to another episode of Cash and Sass. I'm Lisa Marie, the Sassy Wealth Queen, the brains behind this podcast, and the Sassy Wealth Coach. And with me today, I have Erin Gray, and she is a former certified financial planner and has over 10 years of experience helping run her family's water and wastewater construction business. She was the classic overachiever and lived a checklist life, delaying her joy and fulfillment for someday. Erin took 2 years off to travel the world, spend time with her family, and work through her deep-seated stories and beliefs that she had with money. She now helps entrepreneurs blend the 3D knowledge and understanding in business like bookkeeping, taxes, investing, and the 5D of money, the emotions and their energetics when it comes to money so that they can have a business and life they love. She believes that our business and life can only thrive at the level of our emotional well-being. And I'm going to start off by saying amen to that. So we know what we're going to talk about. It's called Cash and Sass for a reason. And we're going to dive deep into money. And today I was talking with Erin right before we went live, and we're going to dive into generational trauma and that money trauma. And first, Erin, I would like you to kind of give us just a little bit journey with your money, because when we talk, it'll lead into that. And I really want us just to go deep, because I think it's important for people to realize that no matter where you're at, or no matter the trauma, especially with money, you can get out of it. You can not get out of it. You can move through it. You can get to the other side.
Totally can move through it. Thank you, Lisa, for having me on. That introduction, it brings tears to my eyes still. I think that because, you know what, I think a lot of us have been there or are currently there. Like that, my story of the checklist life, right? Like you go to school, you get a degree, you get a job, you do the things, you save for your retirement, you save for your kids' education, you buy the houses, you just go through the motions is what I call it. And we've been sold this lie, at least I feel like in the Western society, we've been sold this lie that like all of these external things are going to bring you the feelings, the fulfillment that you're looking for within. And it doesn't, right? And I think that it was, probably when I had done the check boxes, right? When you've done so many of them, you're like, wait a second, like I don't feel any different than I thought I would by having these things. And so something really has to change. And do I really want to live my life from this place of like, oh, I get to enjoy my life when I reach retirement? And I remember asking our financial advisor, I mean, I was still working with my family in their business at the time, but I remember asking him like, okay, can we make it on just my husband's salary? And can we make it to retirement by 50? I think I was 32, 35 at the time. And now when I think about that, I'm like, basically I was asking like, can I just suffer through this for another 15 years to get to a point where I don't have to do something I'm not truly excited about, and then finally get to, air quotes, live? And obviously, the condensed version is it didn't happen, even at that point. That's not when I started to make the change. And so, each of us get to experience this, and our journey is so different, and it's okay where you are. But I think we all, especially as women, we all have this internal knowing that something's off. And I think for me, it took me a little bit longer to figure that out, but here we are.
Yeah, the key about money trauma, though, is it's generational, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't or won't see it as trauma per se. We'll think something's just wrong with us, that we're just horrible at money. I'm just bad at money. I'm just horrible at money. You can't depend on me with money. So I'm not going to be able to have a business over this amount, or I can't start a business, or whatever is going on in the head at the moment. And a lot of times it's not just one generation back, it's 7 generations back. There's actually been studies to show that generational trauma, which also includes money trauma, can go all the way back to 7 generations. And so that's why they talk about, let's make changes for 7 generations forward, right? Because if we make changes now, then and we do it differently, we're actually starting a trend 7 generations ahead. And I don't know about anybody else, but the thought of 7 generations after me being so much better than the 7 generations before me makes me feel really, really good. And it's not meant to put pressure on us. It's just meant to say, okay, do we like how this is? Do we like the status quo? Do we like what's been passed down generation to generation? And if we don't, then okay, we need to get off our ass and do something about it.
Yeah.
Y'all know me. I'm blunt. I'm Southern. I'm blunt. And that's just about as nice as I can put it when it comes down to it. When did you realize that was money trauma, though? That there was something deep seated?
Yeah, when I actually took time off because, and, a lot of people think money trauma happens with people that don't have money, but money trauma actually happens with people that have money. And that was my case, right? I am good with money. I do know how to save money. I do know how to invest money. I do know how to make money, right? I know how to do all those things. But the hypervigilance, the hoarding that I felt, it is no different if you were to go into somebody's house who actually physically hoards material things, or my bank account that physically hoards. That's the type of, I was a hoarder and I was hyper vigilant. And I realized it when I decided to take time off of work. So I basically, like an addict, I took away all of my binkies, right? Like I wasn't working, so I wasn't making money. We were using our investments. Not only were we using our investments to fund our life, we were actually going out and having fun, which, what have you done to earn fun? Which that's another story that I had to work through. So it was really when I took time off that everything that I had been suppressing, got a chance to come up, right? And I think workaholism is a thing. And I think it's very easy to disguise some of those money trauma tendencies and behaviors and feelings that we have when we work, because there's that dopamine hit we get from working. There's the dopamine hit we get from making money and feeling good about ourselves. So the short answer is when I took time off is really when the shit hit the fan and it was like, holy shit, this is something bigger. And I had already taken an ACE test, and because I had done what I call like money mindset, just like, let's think differently, let's believe differently. But like in my body, things weren't changing. And so I had done some researching about, I didn't even know money trauma was a thing. You hear about physical.
Most people don't.
Most people
don't. Most people don't.
You hear about physical, sexual, right? And so when I took the ACE test, I scored, I don't know which way it goes, I don't remember, but it was low from the standpoint of like, I didn't experience those childhood events, but money trauma is not on there at all. And so of course I would score low but that was my aha, that like, holy shit, it's not just physical, sexual, emotional traumas that we go through, right? Like, money is a thing. And a lot of us probably, like if you, I'm 44. So if you are around my age, and even if you aren't, right, if you're younger, you probably do have some sort of money trauma, because we have, like you said, I mean, you've heard 7, I've heard 14 generations, like it is in our DNA, right? And so if you were raised by someone who their parent was part of the Great Depression, 100% that is, it can't not
That's
be
money trauma. That's money trauma. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm 51, so I am in that age.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Money trauma looks different for each person. So a lot of people are going, wait, how could you have money and have money trauma? Very easily. If you have someone generations and generations and generations back that went through the Great Depression and started hoarding their money, and then they taught their next generation, you can't spend it unless you're working for it. Otherwise, you got to save. It's got to be there. It's got to be there. It's got to be there. The hoarding starts. And then they pass it on to the generation. They pass it on to the generation. I call it 2 extremes. That's this extreme. The other extreme is when you grow up with no money and you're always told there's no money, and you're never going to get anywhere because you weren't born into money, and money doesn't grow on trees. You heard all the things, okay? The money is talked negatively about, and you grew up realizing that unless you marry, if you don't come from money, unless you marry into money, you're never going to have any money, which is what we're told.
Yeah.
You're going to have to go to work, pay your bills, go to sleep, get up the next day and do everything. And you're just going to have to live with barely making ends meet and not being able to do the things. And of course, I call BS on that. I didn't realize that there was money stories and some kind of money trauma in there. At first, I didn't know that there was money trauma.
Yeah.
I have a very small amount, not like a lot of others. Serious money trauma would be if anytime you spent money, you were physically, verbally, or emotionally abused, especially verbally. Verbally is really bad because it tell you, why are you spending this money? You're spending frivolously, blah, blah, blah. And now you just stop, right? And you don't realize it. But even as a young age, over time, you end up doing it. Or it could have been 2 generations prior that happened to. And then your mom or father, if they were the ones ridiculed, taught you were never to spend money unless it was on something that was a necessity.
Yeah.
So those are the 2 extremes. Money trauma exists. And you're right. A lot of people don't realize that there are forms of that. Most of the time, they just think they're not good with money. Yeah. And especially with women, we weren't, not that long ago, people. Women didn't pay the bills, okay?
Well, we didn't even get a credit card until the 80s,
right?
like late 70s, You didn't even get to be on your own mortgage until the 80s.
I was born in 73, and the thought that it was early 80s before we could get our own mortgage, it just baffles my mind.
Yeah.
And those are things that, because if you're around our age, mine and Erin's age, money wasn't taught to us. Money management sure as hell wasn't, because it wasn't our responsibility. The man was in charge of the money. They were the ones that's supposed to do the things. Then it started becoming an issue because if they married and then the spouse died and he was the one that did all the things, all of a sudden a woman was left and she didn't know what the hell she's supposed to do. Which started saying, wait, okay, we got to do something. And it still took time, right? And that's the reason why I'm so passionate about women having a better relationship with money and knowing, especially now. I mean, look at us. A lot of us have businesses. A lot of us are very good, but we still have this thing that stops us. And a lot of times it's that money mindset, that money trauma. When you realize you had this money trauma, and you said that you felt disempowered by it. 1, what did you mean by you feeling disempowered? And 2, what are some things that you did to work through the money trauma? Because it's not you don't cure it, right? It's something you have to dig deep down and work through.
Yeah, it's definitely something you work through. So I took some courses, like an actual course on money trauma. I want to say, we've been, depending on what your upbringing was, because a lot of us have this, so many people will say like, oh, they think that money is evil. And that wasn't a story that I had. What I had to kind of get to and peel back the onion was money creates conflict, because my parents fought about money all the time. And so when I would hear like, oh, well, what are your stories? What are your beliefs? Money is evil didn't feel like that in my body. Cause I'm like, no. Because my father had always been entrepreneurial, and he had several businesses, and then had made some decisions, and then we were in some financial situations, and that's really when it started. And then, he made his way back up again. But that was me having to recognize, because I was holding like this, different opposing beliefs, right? It was like, no, I know money is
it's like
good
a yo-yo.
and fun. Yeah, because
it's like a yo-yo.
Yeah. We got to go on vacations. We had nice house. Like, no, we got to private school. Like, money did good things. And also my parents fought about money all the time. And like you said, never enough, right? No matter how much it was never enough, which is really, when I heard the phrase like money is just a mirror or reflection of you, I was like, when you get it like at a awareness level, but then when you get it as a body level, like, oh, once I really understood, like, oh, that's what I thought about myself. It was never enough. I'm never good enough. And so for me, I think I started digging like, what is money trauma? And I was taking a course, which of course, the course was actually geared towards people that didn't have money. So here we go back to, okay, I don't feel like I fit in here because if I'm going to speak about my money trauma, and I think this is something else with women that we don't feel safe to be seen, right? So many of us have been told to be quiet, don't rock the boat, all of this stuff. So I didn't feel safe to be in a group of people that were trying. How am I going to sit here and talk about my money trauma when someone is saying that they can't pay their bills? It didn't feel safe for me, right? So really starting to dig into, okay, so this is a thing, reading books and really doing a lot of somatic work with my body. And this is what I always tell clients, like you have to play with this, right? Like tapping, EFT, like emotional freedom technique or breath work. There's lots of different ways to get into the body to release some of that stored trauma in the tissues. And so there's no one right way or wrong way to do this. It's just really recognizing that if you think about what are your top 3 emotions when you think about your money or your business, what are they? And if it's one that you feel in your body is tense and either, sometimes it looks like hypervigilant or hyper avoidant. So if you're experiencing those extremes, then I would encourage you to start doing some somatic work with someone that can help you move some of that energy till you kind of learn the skills and the practices so that you can start doing that on your own, because really we've got to, like, energy likes to move, right? So it's just, I don't like the word using stuck energy, but it's just energy that is in our bodies that we have not released yet.
Yeah, because I've done a lot of work, a lot of mindset work, a lot of coaches and all the things, and then I got introduced to somatic work over a year ago, and I started doing the somatic work. Really, this past year was a lot of somatic work, and the and learning to move the energy, because so often people are like, oh, journal it. And I'm like, okay, look, for the love of God, when I get in my head, once I'm in my head, I can look at a piece of paper and nothing is going to be written. Nothing.
Yep.
Like I might write some I am statements, but nothing that was going on is going to come out on the paper. And for some, they can immediately journal it out and move that energy that way. I, however, was like you're talking about, I felt unsafe at first. Not unsafe, but like, okay, everybody else says they can journal and I can't journal.
Yeah.
So I'm just not going to say anything because, and then one day I looked at she's a momentum coach and she's somatic too. And one day I was like, for the love of God, once I'm in my damn head, I can't journal. And she's like, because I was so aggravated over everybody saying it. And she goes, well, guess what? I'm the exact same way. You want me to tell you what I do in order so that I can go journal? I was like, please, because I am so tired of people telling me to do that or suggesting it because it don't work. And it was move the energy. It was go put on some music. And she sent me some different music and just move the energy. And if you're angry, if that's stomping your feet, playing some angry song, whatever, but getting it out. She even said, shaking your arms and your legs like you're dancing. She said, and I was like, I feel weird and I look weird. She said, if you don't look weird, you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
Okay, then I must be doing it right.
Yeah.
As soon as when I do that, I am then able to sit down and journal about the things that I envision and what I want and all that things because I moved the negative energy, the lack energy, whatever was not moving, I moved it out. I moved it out of my head because I'm the type of person that once I get in my head, that's it.
Yeah.
So there is no journal. And so I love the fact that you're saying that there's no right or wrong. There's somatic is very different. She uses music to move the body, right? And she's in touch with her body, which is part of the somatic, and she's moving all that energy. And in the morning, she makes it a practice to move good energy through her body for the exact same reason. And the whole point of that is to let you know, again, there's no right or wrong way. And moving that energy, y'all, afterwards, Jesus, it feels awesome. How often have you been able to create when you move the energy? And someone told me that that they have actually watched people get sick over the years because they never moved all that negative energy
100%.
out of their body.
Yep.
And when I had a breakthrough on Mount Zion, when I did a 15-mile hike, and the guy that was leading it, I had a major breakthrough. I mean, literally, I was 50 at the time. So, this last year, wailed for the first time in my entire life. Y'all, I've never wailed in my entire life. Never. And I wailed on the top of a mountain. Okay. And then I started apologizing. He's like, I said, I don't know where this came from. He goes, I do. And he said, Lisa, I've watched so many people get diseases and die from holding this energy in because they didn't want to release it or they didn't know how to release it. He said, you're on top of this mountain. The mountain knew you need to release it.
Yeah.
And I had 3 breakthroughs on that mountain. And then I had another one in Bali. And then I had another one in Arizona, all of them last year. And that was in the between of doing all the somatic work. I truly believe that he's right, that it's got something to do with it.
There's
and
science for it. That's not a negotiation.
We need to release that energy. And it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And at first when some people say, how does that? Just trust me.
Yeah.
It works. It works. And you have to find what works for you, right? Because there's different things. And I just think it's important to be able to, especially if you've done all the things before and you're still feeling disempowered. 9 out of 10 times you're going to have some type of trauma, and you may not realize where. But I tell people all the time, the first root is figuring out, okay, how do you really feel about money? And is there some type of trauma in there? And if there is, somatic work will help you release that type of energy so that you can move forward. Because I got to the point to where I felt good about money, but I was hitting a stuck spot. I wasn't able to grow to a certain part. And it was because I had some of the trauma that technically you wouldn't say was related to money, but it was related to money because it was related to me being able to receive more money.
Yep.
And live a better life than the way I was raised or grew up. And releasing that trauma and working through that trauma is now made it to where, okay, not stuck.
Plateau.
Thank you. That plateau of where, like, I reached the point and I kept hitting a wall.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to bust through the wall and I can't bust through. Now I'm able to get over that wall.
I wrote down a couple of things. So I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of human design, but that was one of the things that really helped me. I don't know if you're aware of it, but when I learned about human design, and that was a way for me to tap into my intuition. And it was also in the beginning because I was so disconnected from my body. And Gabor Mate talks a lot about this. Like we become disconnected because that is a way that we can seek and feel love from most often our parents, caregivers, right? So we become disconnected from who we truly are when we are younger, right? We abandon ourselves because love, safety exists in our caregivers. And so in the beginning, for me, it was that bridge between the logical and then getting into the body. And so it gave me some explanations and some understandings about myself. And when you talk about journaling and just, with the defined head and ajna that I have, it's like, it's always on. It's always, like I call it, always on, always connected. And so getting into my body was a practice and a skill because I could literally live up in my head all the time. And so understanding,
you and I are sisters then, because let me tell you, people, they're like, you live there, don't you? I'm like, yes. I could live up there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
So depending on like where you're defined and where you have more, consistent energy, like for me, what I call it is like, it feels like a ping pong match in my body at times because my body feels this way and wants to do something and my head is like so overpowering. And for many of us, we've lived in our head as a protective mechanism, and it is a very strong muscle. Just think about anything that like with your body, right? What is the skill that you've practiced? We've practiced being in our heads more than we've practiced being in our bodies. And so one of the things that I really had to do was the the compassion, the self-compassion, the reparenting, right? Because I kind of grew up, which I know my parents meant well from an empowerment place of like, put your big girl panties on, Erin, like you're going to do it, all that kind of stuff. And a lot of my clients and friends and, people I surround myself kind of have that same experience. And what we need actually in those moments where we're having a hard time isn't to put our big girl panties on. We need love. We need compassion. We need, it's going to be okay. It's okay to take a day off. It's okay to rest. It's okay to just cry and be where you are right now. And it feels weird in the beginning because you're so practiced at just pushing through and not, allowing yourself the grace to feel what needs to be felt in the moment. And like we've already talked about, and if we don't do this, it just continues to be in our bodies and not get expressed. And then the last thing that I would say is you talked about, this level or this plateau. It's like we all have a financial thermometer, right? Of what we are used to. Like if you think about at our basis, our state of being, there is a number in our bank account. There is a lifestyle that we are familiar with, that our nervous system that's normal for us. So like what you were talking about is as you are bumping up at these other levels of income, the body, it's almost like a rubber band. It's like if the nervous system hasn't been acclimated to be at that level, it wants to retract and go back to where it is because that's where safety feels. It feels like, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that's where safety is. It's just what it feels like safe in our bodies. And so I always say like gradually expanding that because there's so many people you'll hear about people that generate a lot of money and then they don't have any money, a year or two from now. It's because they haven't built up the capacity to have and be that person that has that amount of money.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll have my business 8 years. Excuse me. It's been 8 years this past October. And it was very frustrating because what you're talking about is like, okay, I've done all the work and I've reached this plateau. Why can't, and what it was is as you grow, I call it every new level brings a new devil.
Yep.
And it's true. And what my coach told me is when it does, sometimes you have to grow, you have to go deeper, meaning you go deeper into the healing that you've done in order to grow.
Yeah.
And that's what part of this last year is I had to go deeper. And I got all mad. I was like, I've done all the work on this crap. I don't want to talk about this mess no more. Yeah. And they're like, you're going another layer. And I'm like, really? How many freaking layers is there going to be? And apparently they're going to be life. Right. Apparently there's never any amount of layers. Meaning like, every new level, every new level is going to bring a new devil. Yeah. And the reason being is because your subconscious wants to protect you.
Yeah.
And so it's going to, I tell people all the time, I don't need somebody to sabotage me. I end up doing it myself.
Yes.
I am notorious. My brain and we can do self-sabotage without thinking about it. It's like I said, you and I are sisters. And there comes a time where you say, okay, how do I do this differently?
Yeah.
And you one of the things I do is what I was used to doing is I was pushing it back and I ignore it. Now what I do is I say, I hear you and we're safe and we're going to do it this way, not this way. Now, sometimes it takes a lot of conscious work to not get in my head and live there. Okay. Cause I'm like Erin here. I have no issues living in my head. It's what I did. It's just it was who I was. And you're right. It's right. It's safe. That's how it works. And just because it feels safe doesn't actually mean it's safe.
And it doesn't mean it's the best thing for you.
Right.
Yep.
So sometimes going towards something that makes your body, your brain tell you it's not safe is actually the best thing for you.
Yeah.
It's learning to trust that gut and learning to trust that intuition. And what's so funny is I used to listen to my gut and then I stopped. And now we had to figure out, okay, why did I stop? Yep. Because my gut was actually what would help me make decisions to go start my business. Why did I all of a sudden stop? Why did I start second guessing myself again? Yep. And that's part of that. Again, that was a deeper healing, right? And so it's just really important to understand I tell people all the time, your current situation is not what defines you.
Yeah.
Your past situation is not what defines you. Erin even put up that she grew the fear of running out of money, so she hoarded it. I grew up with being told I was never going to have enough money, so I wasn't supposed to do any of the things that I want to do. Don't get your nails done. Don't go color your hair. Don't do this. Don't do that. What's so funny is for a while I went to the extreme and I did everything without even trying to manage save money. Again, that's also part of the trauma because you want to do the complete opposite. You want to go on the other end of the spectrum. And then I had to rein myself back and go, oh, wait, that's not the answer either.
Yep. It's like, where's the middle? I always say that, right? Like sometimes we do have to go to the other side, right? Because we do have to have that contrast to be exactly what Lisa's saying.
I did.
To be back in the middle, right? I've done it too. It's like, because we've restricted ourselves, we've been told like, right? Like the little kid in us is like an F you, right? And we're going to go all the way over to the other side to then come back to the middle. And I do want to say too, is that wherever you have been, wherever has got you to where you are, right? I think sometimes we want to bash the ego, or I hear people talk about like, our minds are such assholes. It's like, it's not, right? Like the hoarding did serve me. It did allow me to be and get to where I was. Now, do I want to spend the rest of my life like that? No, but it did serve a purpose. And so having and finding, and this doesn't happen overnight, but like finding gratitude and that awareness of like, yeah, there was parts of old Erin that served, like it helped me get to where I am. And thank you for that. And also I know different now, and we're going to choose a different way moving forward. And that's okay too. Right. And so I think sometimes we can, like you said about self-sabotage, it's like, we don't need anyone else to talk down to us or beat ourselves up. It's like, we do that totally enough for ourselves. And so just finding that compassion for that little person inside of you that was doing the best that they could with what they had, with where they were, right? And now we know
with the information, with the information they had at the time.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, because that's what we do: is we make decisions based off of where we're at, what's going on, and the information that we have in front of us at the time.
Yep.
And sometimes the information we have in front of us is all we have, and then when we go down the road, we're like, oh, if I'd have known that. Okay, but that was down here. You wouldn't have known that here. So giving ourselves this compassion, and I know that's hard. And I'm going to stipulate none of it happens overnight. None of it.
Nope.
And fair warning, it is continuous. It is continuous work. It's just like your health and your fitness, and you don't work out and build your muscles and then just stop and keep your muscles. I wish it worked that way. It doesn't. And neither does the money mindset and the work that you're doing within your self to heal and to think differently. All of that is a continuous process. Because again, as you grow, as you start reaching for new heights and new levels, subconsciously, I call it a little girl's going to pop up.
Yeah.
And she's going to start talking.
Yep.
And it's up to us to say, okay, wait, I have these tools. I hear you. I'm listening. And we're going to be okay because we're going to do this instead.
Yeah.
And, whether that's moving the stuff through the body, journaling, doing both, whatever. And I agree with Erin, getting as someone to work with you who does somatic work. There's different types, different ways they can do it, and finding one that works is or breath work, or combination, is amazing, and it really does help. Erin, you have. I'm gonna tell my listeners this and I'm hoping she'll say yes. I've written down that, and she said we weren't going to go down the rabbit hole of human design.
Yes,
but I'm going to ask Erin to come back so that we could talk about human design and money, because I think it would be a awesome podcast all on its own. So y'all just gonna have to keep an eye out, because if she says yes, then that'll happen. But you have a free gift. Excuse me, I have something stuck in my throat apparently.
Yeah.
You have a free gift for my listeners. Will you please tell them about that?
Yeah. So me and another colleague of mine, Carmen Toletta, she is well versed in human design, probably way more knowledgeable than I am. We were both in a human design, what would certification course together, but we created, because I feel like human design is a big buzz right now, but I meet so many people that say, that this is their chart or this, but it's like we're not actually applying it and embodying it. And I'm like, if we're not doing that, what are we doing? So she and I created a 4-part, it's pre-recorded video workshop series to transform your relationship and decision making. Really, like, I'm really passionate about women and what you said, Lisa, going back and trusting yourself and using your intuition, because I think in the business world, we've gotten so cerebral with our decision making versus actually how we're meant to make decisions. And so I'll give that to Lisa, but they can enroll and they can watch the series. And then there's also a workbook that they can go through, and they can grab their chart and they can kind of it's a very interactive and workshop series that they can use to really understand their human design and then how they're meant to make decisions, and then start to apply that and use that in their life and in their business, especially with money.
I love it because I've heard of human design. I've never heard of it with decision making with coming in money. And you're right. If you're going to talk about human design, if we're not embodying it, then what's the point?
Yeah.
And I love this, y'all. I'm gonna be grabbing it, so I think y'all should grab it too. Excuse me. And thank you so much for being on my show. I appreciate it. And for my listeners, I think the biggest thing I want you to take away is, again, no matter where you're at in your journey, you can move through it. And just because you may not see that there's trauma doesn't mean there isn't. And if there is, it's okay. You can also move through that. There are ways to do that. And I am going to be the first to say, yes, therapy is one of them. And I did lots and lots of therapy when I was younger, and it healed in a certain way. And there was still stuff deep in energy wise that needed to be moved so that I wasn't holding myself back anymore. And sometimes even after the therapy, you may come into that. And that doesn't mean the therapy didn't work. For the record, everybody listen, that did not mean the therapy didn't work. What it means is there's just some stuff deep down, and somaticness will actually help you move it. And I want you to remember that this isn't a thing that happens overnight, right? I'm a fractional CFO and a wealth coach, and I work with my clients all the time. And I tell them, changing your money management, changing the way you look at your money, and changing, the mindset. You didn't get where you're at overnight. You're not going to change it overnight. And it's going to be a continuous process. It's not something you just do, quote unquote, fix, and then you never have to work on it again. That's not how this works. If it did, we would all be awesome, right? We'd all be not awesome. We'd all be, I'd be out of a job. I mean, Erin would be out of a job. I mean, come on. It's just not how it works, right? And if it worked that way, we would all feel better about money a long time ago, right? And we would never have hit those plateaus. And that's just not the way it works. I mean, like I said, it's the same way with fitness. So I just want you to take away that no matter where you're at, sometimes you have to dig deeper, like I was told, and sometimes you have to go deeper. And the somaticness and moving that energy is what's going to do that. So that, especially if you're like me and Erin, where you tend to live up in your head, hey, 1, you're not alone. And 2, if we can figure out how to move through it, then so can you, right? Yep. So thank you so much for being on my show. I truly appreciate it. Y'all go grab the link. It's going to be in the show notes. Go get that link and make sure you sign up for that recorded course. I know I'm going to. And until next time, remember, stay sassy. Bye.
Thanks for joining us this week on Cash and Sass. Check us out on social media and on our website at www.thesassywealthcoach.com, where you can download my free Money Story Start Guide. The website again is www.thesassywealthcoach.com. And as always, subscribe to the show to catch every new episode and leave us a review so we can continue to bring you fresh content. And remember, yes, it is possible to have sassy and sexy money. See you next week.